"Lily, baby, open your eyes." But her face was gray as ash. Her lips were the color of bruises. She was limp in his arms, a 4-year-old already claimed by the cold. Caleb Thornton was watching his children die. 5 kids. A broken wagon. A blizzard that had swallowed the world whole. His wife, Emma, had been dead for 2 years, and now the same cruel fate was coming for everything he had left. He had stopped believing in God the night he buried her. But with his children fading in his arms, he looked up into that howling darkness and did something he swore he'd never do again. He prayed, "Take me. Just let my children live." The wind was his only answer. He was alone. Then his daughter, Grace, shouted through the storm, "Papa! A light!" A cabin. Impossible. Miles from anywhere. And in the doorway stood a woman who would change everything. Not just that night, but for the rest of their lives. The lesson. Some storms come to destroy us. Others come to lead us exactly where we need to be. The question isn't whether you'll face the storm, it's whether you'll keep walking toward the light. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment and tell me, have you ever found hope in your darkest moment? Share with someone who needs to hear this today, and subscribe so you never miss a story about the families we build from the ashes of the ones we've lost. "Lily, baby, open your eyes," he pleaded. But her face was a ghostly gray, her lips the color of a dark bruise. She was limp in his arms, a little rag doll already claimed by the cold. Then a cry from behind him, nearly swallowed by the wind. "Papa! Ruth fell down. She is not getting up." His blood ran colder than the ice on the ground. He found them huddled together in the swirling snow. 11-year-old Ruth was curled in a ball, not moving. His only son, 9-year-old Sam, knelt beside her, shaking her with his own bare hands. "Sam, where are your gloves?" Caleb asked, his voice rough. The boy's teeth chattered. "I gave them to Hannah. Her hands were cold." Of course he had. That was his boy, always trying to be the man of the house since his mama Emma had passed on. Caleb knelt, shifting Lily to one arm, and grabbed Ruth's face. "Ruth, open your eyes now." Her eyelids fluttered, but she looked right through him. "Tired, Papa. I just want to sleep." "No," Caleb said, his voice like a crack of thunder. "You do not get to sleep. Not yet." He hauled her to her feet, where she swayed like a willow branch. He looked at his children. Grace, his 14-year-old, stood like a rock, holding little 6-year-old Hannah, her face set with a determination that broke his heart. It was the same look she wore at her mother's funeral, a look that said this family would not fall apart on her watch. "We keep moving," Caleb announced. "Moving where?" Sam cried, his voice breaking. "There is not anything out here, Papa." "We keep moving," Caleb repeated, hearing the harshness in his own tone. "We stop. We die. Do you understand?" 5 little heads nodded in the blinding snow. He did not know which way they were going anymore. The storm had wiped the world clean, leaving nothing but white death in every direction. Just 6 hours ago, they had a wagon, supplies, and clear skies. Then the blizzard hit like a fist from heaven. The horses panicked, and the axles snapped. He was left walking through a frozen hell with 5 children who trusted him to save them. A voice in his head whispered, "You could not save Emma. You cannot save them." He pushed it down. Then Grace began to hum one of Emma's old songs. "Hush, little baby. Do not say a word." Soon Ruth joined in, her voice weak, and then Sam, his voice cracking. Even little Hannah whispered the words. They sang of a mockingbird as they walked toward their graves. The song died when Ruth's legs finally gave out, and she pulled Sam down with her. This time she would not get up. "I cannot, Papa," she whispered, her eyes distant. "Mama is waiting for me." The words hit Caleb like a punch. "Mama is dead," he said, the truth tasting like poison. "She has been gone for 2 years, but your sisters need you. Your brother needs you. I need you." For a moment, her eyes focused on him. "Okay, Papa," she breathed. They got her up, but Caleb knew time was running out. He had stopped believing in God the night he lost Emma. But with his children fading, he looked up into the howling darkness and did something he swore he would never do again. He prayed. "Please," he begged, "take me, just let my children live." The wind was his only answer. He was alone. But then Grace's shout cut through the storm. "Papa, a light!" Caleb's head snapped up. There, faint as a dying candle, was a golden glow. A cabin! It was impossible, miles from anywhere, but it was real. It might as well have been 100 miles away. But it was their only chance. "Go!" Caleb yelled. They ran, stumbling through drifts that felt like quicksand. The light grew brighter, closer, 50 yards, 30. A solid shape appeared in the white, with smoke rising from a chimney. They collapsed against the porch just as the door swung wide open. A woman stood in the doorway, framed by the warm light of a fire. Her eyes took in the entire tragic scene in a single glance, from the children near collapse to the baby limp in Caleb's arms. She did not waste time on questions. "Get them inside. Now," she commanded, her voice firm. Caleb stumbled in, carrying Ruth, and Grace followed with Lily. Sam pulled Hannah over the threshold just as the woman shut the door, sealing out the storm. The warmth hit them like a physical blow. The woman was already pulling blankets from a chest. "Lay them by the fire," she ordered. "Get those wet clothes off them. Everything." Her eyes were sharp and left no room for argument. "Hypothermia kills. Your daughters are dying. Move." Caleb and his children did as they were told, working with numb fingers to strip away the frozen layers. The woman knelt between Ruth and Lily, her hands moving with practiced speed, checking for a pulse, for breath. She worked tirelessly, rubbing their small limbs, forcing warm broth between their lips, and wrapping them in dry, warm wool. For hours she fought back the cold that had claimed them, her face a mask of concentration. Caleb could only watch, helpless for the first time, as a complete stranger fought for the lives of his children. As the sun rose, all 5 children were breathing steadily, tucked into warm beds. The woman finally sat down, exhaustion etched on her face. She looked at Caleb. "I lost my husband and my own little boy to a storm like this 10 years ago," she said softly, her voice thick with old pain. "I could not save them. When I saw you all out there, I knew heaven had sent me a second chance." In that small cabin, Caleb and his children found more than just shelter. They found a woman named Martha, who understood their loss. Together, they did not just survive. They started a new life. The world had tried to break them, but a father's love and a stranger's kindness proved that even after the worst storm, a family can be built anew. Model, who was shaking so hard the tears had frozen right to her cheeks. The woman's voice softened. "And what's your name, sweetheart?" "Hannah." "Well, Hannah, that's a lovely name. I need you to go sit right by that fire and get warm for me. Can you do that?" The little girl nodded. The woman went right back to work, wrapping small bodies in dry blankets, her hands moving sure and steady. Caleb could only stare, his mind and body numb. He was just watching this stranger save his children. "Sit down," she said, looking straight at him. He blinked. "Sit down before you fall down. You're shaking so hard you can barely stand." Caleb sat. She handed him a cup of bitter, hot tea. "Drink every drop." He drank. She went back to check on Lily, feeling for a pulse and leaning in close to check her breathing. "Is she—" Caleb couldn't get the words out. "She's alive," the woman said, her voice tight. "But barely. We warm her up too fast, her heart will quit. We have to go slow." "Can you save her?" The woman looked him square in the eye. "I'm going to try my best." She turned back to Lily, tucking the blankets and talking low and steady. "Come on now, little one. Your papa's here. We need you to wake up." Grace, his oldest, came to his side. She was 14 and had been carrying the weight of the world since her mother passed. "Papa, is Lily going to be all right?" Caleb looked at his daughter. "I don't know, honey." Grace nodded, like she knew that was the answer. "Mama would have known what to do," she said softly. The words were a knife in Caleb's chest. He pulled her close to him. "This lady knows what to do. Look at her. She's taking care of all of us." Grace watched the woman work, a flicker of something in her eyes. "Who is she, Papa?" "I don't know yet." "Why is she all alone way out here?" "I don't know that either." "Are we safe here?" Caleb looked around the small, clean cabin. There were jars on the shelves and a steady fire burning in the hearth. This woman had opened her door without a second thought. "Yeah," he said finally. "I reckon we are." Just then, Ruth's eyes fluttered open. "Papa?" Caleb was at her side in an instant. "I'm right here. You're safe now." Ruth looked past him and saw the woman leaning over Lily. "Is Lily okay?" Caleb paused, and Ruth saw it. "Papa?" "She's alive," he said. "This lady is helping her." Tears welled up in Ruth's eyes. "I tried to keep her warm, Papa. I really tried." "You did good," Caleb told her, squeezing her hand. "Your mama would be so proud of you." Ruth's face just crumpled. "I miss Mama." "I know, darling, I do too." Across the room, Sam's voice cut through the quiet. "Papa, Lily moved." Caleb's head snapped around. The woman was still bent over his youngest, but now Lily's little hand had twitched. "That's it," the woman whispered. "That's it, Lily girl. You come on back to us now." Lily's eyes slowly opened. Fear flickered in them until she saw her father. "Papa," she whispered, the sound thin as a thread. Caleb was on his knees beside her in a heartbeat. "I'm here, baby girl, I'm right here." "So cold, Papa." "I know, but you're warm now. You're going to be just fine." Lily's gaze shifted to the woman next to her. "Who's that?" The woman gave a small, warm smile. "My name is Clara. I'm going to help you feel all better." Lily looked her over with the serious eyes that only a 4-year-old has. "You're pretty," Lily declared. Clara let out a soft laugh. "Well, thank you, Lily. You're a pretty brave little girl." Lily's eyes were already drifting shut again, but this time it was a peaceful, natural sleep. Clara looked up at Caleb. "She's going to be okay," she said quietly. "They all are, but they need food and rest. The storm isn't letting up tonight, so y'all will have to stay. We couldn't impose on you." "It's not imposing," she said, standing up. "I didn't bring you inside just to let you freeze on my porch. You'll stay until this storm is gone and your children are strong." "Ma'am." "Clara. My name is Clara." Caleb finally stood up and faced her. "Clara, I don't know how I can ever thank you. You don't need to. Right now, you just need to rest." She moved toward the stove. "I'll get some food started. Then we can talk." She started moving around the cabin, calm as you please, like saving 5 children from a blizzard was just a part of her day. Caleb watched her move. Who was this woman, living all alone out in the middle of nowhere? He had so many questions, but his children were alive. They were breathing easy by the fire. For now, that was all that mattered. His daughter Hannah tugged on his sleeve. "Papa?" "Yeah, baby?" "Is that lady an angel?" Caleb looked over at Clara, the firelight dancing on her face as she worked. He saw the strong, capable hands that had pulled his family back from the brink of death. "I don't know," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But she might be." Hannah nodded, satisfied with his answer. "Mama sent her," she said with the simple certainty of a 6-year-old child. "Mama sent her to come help us." Caleb felt his throat tighten. Maybe she did. Maybe somewhere out past that howling wind his wife Emma had heard him praying. Or maybe it was just dumb luck. Either way, his children were safe. And for the first time in 2 long years, Caleb Thornton allowed himself to think that things might just turn out okay. The storm raged on outside, but inside the cabin, the fire burned warm and bright. Clara moved with a quiet grace, tending to children that were not her own and feeding strangers she'd just met. Caleb sat watching his daughters sleep peacefully. Sam sat next to him, fighting to stay awake. "Go on and sleep, son." "Someone needs to stand watch, Papa." "I'll watch. You get some rest." Sam thought about it for a second. "Papa?" "Yeah? We almost didn't make it out there." "I know, son. But we did." "Mama would have liked her," Sam said quietly. "Clara, I mean." Caleb looked at the exhaustion on his boy's face. "Yeah," he said, his voice soft. "I think you're right about that." Sam nodded and was asleep almost instantly. Caleb sat alone in the quiet cabin. Clara was still busy checking on the children and preparing food. She noticed him watching her and paused. "You should get some sleep, too." "I can't." "And why is that?" "I need to know they're all right." Clara set down the pot she was holding and walked over to him. "They are all right, I promise you. I know what I'm doing." "I believe you. But I still can't sleep." Caleb looked over at his 5 children, all of them breathing steady. "When I close my eyes, all I see is them out in the snow. I see Lily, not moving." His voice broke. Clara was quiet for a long moment, then she sat in the chair across from him. "Tell me about their mother." The question caught him by surprise. "What about her?" "Your wife. What was her name?" "Emma," he said, the name feeling like gravel in his mouth. "Her name was Emma." "Tell me about her." "Why?" "Because you're sitting there about to drown in guilt," Clara said, her voice gentle but firm. "So talk about Emma instead. What was she like?" Caleb just stared at this stranger who had saved his family and was now asking about his late wife. "She was," he started, then cleared his throat. "She was the best person I ever knew. She just made everything better. The whole room would light up when she walked in." He looked toward the fire. "She used to sing to the kids every night. Couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, but they loved it anyway." "She sounds like she was wonderful." "She was," he whispered, his voice cracking. "And I couldn't do a thing to save her. A fever took her 2 years back. I just had to watch." Clara just sat there and listened. "That's why I can't sleep," Caleb finally said. "I already lost her. I can't lose them too." "You won't lose them. You can't promise me that." "No," Clara admitted, her eyes meeting his. "But I can promise you that for tonight, in this cabin, they are safe. I'll watch over them. You need to rest." "Why?" he asked. "Why are you doing all this for us? You don't even know us." "Anything. Why would you let strangers into your home during a storm?" Clara was quiet for a good long while. She finally answered, "Because somebody did the same for me once. A long, long time ago. When I needed it more than anything." She stood up before he could ask another question. "Get some sleep, Mr. Thornton. We can talk in the morning." She turned and went back to her work, moving with a quiet purpose. Caleb just watched her go, his mind full of questions and mysteries. But his children were safe. They were warm. And they were alive. Right then. That was all that mattered. He leaned his head back and let his eyes drift shut. The last thing he heard was Clara's soft voice, talking low to Lily. "You are safe now, little one. You are safe." And for the first time since Emma passed, Caleb Thornton slept without dreaming of death. When Caleb woke, it was to the smell of coffee and something baking. For a dizzying second, he thought he was back home. He thought Emma was in the kitchen fixing breakfast and that the past 2 years had been just a bad dream. Then the real world came back into focus. He saw the unfamiliar cabin and the dying embers in the fireplace. He saw 5 little bodies sleeping near the hearth. And he saw a woman, who was not Emma, moving quietly by the stove. He sat up slow. Every single muscle in his body screamed at him. He felt like he had been run over, but he was breathing. More important, when he looked over at the fire, all 5 of his children were breathing too. "You're awake," Clara said, glancing over at him. Strands of her hair had come loose from her bun, framing her face. She looked like she had not slept a wink. "How long was I out?" Caleb's voice was gravelly. "About 5 hours. The storm is still blowing, but not as bad as last night." He got to his feet. His legs held him, which was a pleasant surprise. "What about the children?" Lily woke up twice, and she drank some broth both times. "That is a good sign." Clara turned back to what she was doing. Ruth's fever broke around 3 in the morning. The others slept right on through. Fever. Ruth had a fever? Just a small one. It is common after being out in that kind of cold. I gave her some willow bark tea to keep it down. Caleb walked over to the fire, checking on each of his children. Grace was sleeping with Hannah, snuggled close, her arm thrown over her little sister. Sam had rolled onto his back, snoring softly with his mouth open. Ruth's color looked better, a healthy pink instead of that awful pale gray. And Lily, well, Lily's eyes were open. She was just watching him with that serious look she got when she was thinking something over. "Papa." "Hey there, baby girl." He knelt down beside her. "How are you feeling?" "Hungry." That one word was the best gift he could have received. Hungry was good. Hungry meant she was getting better. "That is wonderful. Miss Clara is making us some breakfast." Lily's eyes moved toward Clara, who was taking something out of the oven. "She is nice," Lily said. "She sang to me last night, just like Mama used to." Caleb felt a lump form in his throat. "She did she?" "Yes, sir. I could not sleep, so she sang real quiet so nobody else would wake up." Lily's brow wrinkled. "Papa, why does she live all by herself out here?" "I am not sure, sweetheart. Is she lonely?" "Maybe. Some folks just prefer being on their own." Lily thought about that for a second. "That is sad. Nobody should have to be alone. From the mouths of babes." "No," Caleb agreed softly. "Nobody should." The other children started waking up one after another. Sam shot straight up, looking around wildly until he remembered where he was. Then came Ruth, groggy but making sense. Grace and Hannah were the last to stir, still curled up together. Clara gave them all a breakfast of oatmeal with honey and fresh cornbread. She poured coffee for Caleb and warm milk for the children. They ate like they had not seen food in a week. "Slow down," Caleb told Sam, who was spooning oatmeal into his mouth as fast as he could. "You're going to make yourself sick." "I cannot help it, Papa. This is the best oatmeal I have ever had." "It is just oatmeal," Clara said, but a small smile touched her lips. "No, ma'am. It is not just oatmeal," Sam said around another big bite. "It has got honey and something else in it. Cinnamon. Goodness. My husband always said I put too much cinnamon in everything." The word landed in the quiet room like a rock dropped in a pond. Husband. Caleb looked up at Clara. She had said it so matter-of-factly, like it was nothing special. As if talking about a dead spouse was just everyday conversation. Grace picked up on it too, her eyes getting sharp. "You are married?" she asked. "Was." Clara's voice was steady. "He passed on 6 years ago. I'm sorry to hear that." "Thank you." Clara began to gather the empty bowls. "It was a long time ago." "Mama passed 2 years ago," Hannah announced. "She got real sick and then she went to heaven." "I know, little one. Your papa told me. Do you think he is up there in heaven with her?" Clara stopped and looked at Hannah, her expression hard to figure out. "I think," she said, choosing her words with care, "that the people who love us never truly go away. They just stay inside our hearts and watch over us, even when we cannot see them." Hannah's face brightened. "That is what Papa says, too." Caleb could not recall ever saying that, but he nodded all the same. "Miss Clara?" Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. She had hardly eaten, just pushed her food around her bowl. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course you can. Why do you live way out here by yourself? Do you not have any family?" Grace gave her sister a stern look. "Ruth, that is not polite. It is all right." Clara sat down in the chair across from Ruth. "It is a fair question. The truth is, I came here because I had to be alone for a while. After my husband passed, every little thing reminded me of him. Our house, our friends, the whole life we built. I felt like I could not even breathe." "So, you ran away?" Ruth asked. "I suppose I did. I found this old cabin, fixed it up, and started over." Clara folded her hands neatly in her lap. "Sometimes a person needs to run away for a spell just to figure out who they are after everything they have ever known is gone." Ruth sat there quietly for a moment. Then she asked, "Did it help, running away?" "Some days it does, and some days it does not." Clara gave her a sad smile. "Grief has a way of following you no matter where you go, but sometimes you need a little distance to see it right." Caleb watched his daughter's face and saw the understanding in her eyes. Ruth was the one who had found Emma that morning. She was the one who had run to get him, screaming that Mama would not wake up. She never spoke of it, and she never cried about it, at least not where he could see. But she understood what Clara was saying in a way the other children just could not. "I think about running away sometimes," Ruth admitted in a small voice. "When I miss Mama so much it feels like I cannot take it." "Ruth." Caleb's voice was rough with emotion. He had no idea. In 2 years she had never said a thing. "It is okay, Papa." Ruth did not look at him. Her eyes were still fixed on Clara. "I do not really do it. I just think about it." Clara reached out and took Ruth's small hand in hers. "There is nothing wrong with thinking about it," she said. "There is nothing wrong with feeling things. All that hurt you are carrying around. All those memories, that is just love that does not have anywhere to go. It does not make you a bad person. It just makes you human." Tears welled up in Ruth's eyes. Caleb thought for sure she would pull away and hide inside herself again. But instead she leaned across the table and buried her face in Clara's shoulder. Clara just held her. She did not say a word, she just held her while Ruth cried for the first time in 2 long years. The other children just stared. Sam looked uneasy. Hannah looked like she might start crying too. Grace looked over at Caleb, but he could not read her expression. Little Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Papa, why is Ruthie crying?" "She is sad, baby girl. About Mama." "Yes, about Mama." Lily nodded with a serious look. "I am sad about Mama too, but I cannot remember her face anymore. Sometimes I can still hear her voice." The words felt like a punch to Caleb's gut. Lily had only been 2 when Emma died. Of course she could not remember. Of course the memories were slipping away. "I can tell you all about her," he said, his voice thick. "Anytime you want, I will tell you stories about her, so you never forget. You promise?" "I promise." A small but genuine smile appeared on Lily's face. Across the table, Ruth had stopped crying. She pulled back from Clara and wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I am sorry," she mumbled. "I did not mean to. Do not you ever apologize." Clara gently smoothed Ruth's hair. "Never be sorry for what you feel." Ruth nodded and looked down at her hands. "Miss Clara." "Yes. Thank you for saving us." "I mean for this too. You are very welcome, Ruth." The quiet moment hung in the air. Then Sam finally cleared his throat. "So what's our play? We can't be stuck here forever. We were supposed to be on our way to Uncle Peter's ranch." Caleb had nearly forgotten their destination, the life waiting for them in Wyoming. He looked out at the storm. "It is not broken yet," he said. "We will wait for it to pass, then we will figure it out." Grace asked, "What about the wagon and our horses?" "I will check on them once it clears, see what we can save." Sam spoke up, "I can help. I am strong enough." Me too, Grace added. Caleb looked at Clara. How long do these things last out here? Could be today, could be tomorrow. Might be 3 days, she shrugged. Montana weather does what it wants. You can stay as long as you need to. The offer was simple and kind, with no strings attached. Caleb, who was used to fighting for every small mercy, did not know what to say. Thank you, was all he managed. Clara just nodded and began clearing the breakfast plates. The morning crawled by. The children, feeling cooped up, kept themselves busy. Sam found a pile of old books and read to Hannah and Lily. Ruth helped Clara sort dried herbs, listening close as the woman explained their uses. Grace sat quiet by the window, watching the snow pile up, lost in her own world. That left Caleb with nothing to do, and it felt unsettling. For 2 years he had been moving, working, always fixing something. It kept his hands busy and his mind out of dark corners. But here, in Clara's cabin, there was nothing to fix. Nothing to do but sit and think and feel. He hated it. You look like a caged bear. Clara had come up beside him so quietly he had not even heard her. I'm not used to sitting still. I noticed that. She passed him a cup of coffee. When was the last time you truly rested? I mean really rested, not just passing out from exhaustion. Caleb thought on it. He could not remember. Clara sat across from him. How do you keep on going? I do not have a choice. The kids need me. They need you healthy, not running yourself into an early grave. I am fine. No, you are not. Her voice was plain as day. You are exhausted. You are carrying too much all by yourself, and you are so afraid of stopping you have forgotten what it is like to live. Her words hit him hard. You do not know the first thing about me. I know what I see. A man who nearly got himself killed to save his children. A man whose hands shake when they are not busy. Clara leaned in a little. I know grief, Caleb. I know what it looks like when a person is running from it. I am not running. I am surviving. There is a difference. He had no answer for that. She was quiet for a spell, then said, My husband's name was William. We were married for 12 years. He was a doctor and I was a nurse. We built a life together. When he passed, I thought my life was over too. Caleb looked up at her. She was staring into the fire, but her eyes were a long way off. I did not die, of course, but for a good while I wanted to. Every single morning I would wake up and he was not there, and I would have to choose to keep going all over again. Her voice was steady, almost too steady. I came out here thinking the solitude would be easier, just me and the quiet. Did it work? It did, she said, looking at him now. But it took a long, long time. The point is, I understand wanting to keep moving. Stopping means feeling, and feeling means drowning. Then you know why I cannot stop. I know why you think you cannot. But those children need more than a father who just survives. They need a father who lives, a father who can laugh and show them that joy is still possible. I do not know how to do that anymore. Yes, you do. You have just forgotten. Her hand rested on his for a moment. You talked about Emma last night. You spoke of her like she was the sun itself. A man who talks like that has not forgotten how to feel. He is just scared of feeling too much. Caleb pulled his hand away. Is it easier this way? Is it easier seeing your son with that fear in his eyes, or knowing your youngest cannot remember her own mother's face? That is not fair. No, it is not, Clara agreed, standing up. But fair left a long time ago, Caleb. All we have is what we do next. She turned and walked back to the children. Caleb sat there, his coffee getting cold. He knew she was right. But knowing something and doing it are two different things. Around noon, the storm started to let up. Sam was the first to see it. Papa, the snow is slowing down. Caleb went to the window. The blizzard had lost its teeth. It was still snowing, but lighter now. Can we go outside? Hannah begged. Please. Not just yet, sweetheart. We will let it calm down a bit more, but I want to see the pretty snow, not the scary kind. Soon, he promised. By late afternoon, it was just light flurries. Caleb bundled up to go check on the horses, and Sam insisted on coming along. "I want to help, Papa. I am not a baby." And that was the problem. Sam was growing up way too fast. "All right, but you stay close." They found the horses about a quarter-mile away. They were huddled together behind some rocks and trees. Both of them had made it through, though they were skittish and hungry. "Easy now, Copper," Caleb said softly, approaching with his hands out. The horse nickered and pushed its nose into his palm. "They made it," Sam whispered, relieved. "Montana horses are tough, just like the people here." They led the animals back to a small lean-to behind the cabin. "What about the wagon?" Sam asked as they got the horses settled. "We will look at it tomorrow, when the snow stops for good. Do you think it is okay?" Caleb remembered the axles snapping, the supplies scattering. "Probably not," he said. "But we will salvage what we can." Sam was quiet for a minute. "Papa, what if we cannot fix it? We will figure something else out." "Like what?" Caleb did not have an answer. "Let us just get through today, son. Tomorrow's worries can wait for tomorrow." When they went back inside, the cabin was warm and filled with the smell of supper and the sound of his daughters laughing. Clara had them playing a game at the table. "No, Gracie. You have to put the red one there," Lily instructed. "There is not a red one, Lily. It is just black and white. Then put a black one that looks red. That does not make sense." "It makes sense to me." Caleb stood in the doorway, watching his children just be children. He could not remember the last time he had seen them truly happy. "Papa," Hannah called out, "come play checkers with us." "In a minute, sweetheart," he said, shaking off his wet coat. Clara handed him a warm cup without a word. "The horses are all right?" "Yeah, they pulled through." "Good." She watched him for a second. "You look better. Less like a man about to fall over." It is amazing what a few hours of real sleep can do. The children have been asking questions. "About your life before this?" "What did you tell them?" "I told them it was not my story to tell." "That is fair." Clara's gaze softened. "They also asked about me. Why I am out here alone. Why I do not have any children of my own." Caleb sensed a change in the room. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That I always wanted children, but it just was not in the cards for me. Some things are not meant to be, no matter how much you want them." The words just hung there in the warm air. "I am sorry. Do not be. It was a long time ago." Her eyes drifted back to his children. "But having them here, it does remind a person of what they missed." "Clara, I'm not saying this to make you feel badly. I am saying it because it is peculiar. Yesterday morning I woke up alone, same as I have for 6 long years. Now this cabin has 6 people in it, and it does not feel crowded at all. It feels full." The venison stew Clara had cooked was the finest meal Caleb had tasted in what felt like forever. All the children ate until their bellies were full. Even little Ruth, who had barely touched her food all day, finished 2 whole bowls. Later, they all gathered around the fireplace. The storm had passed, leaving behind a clear night sky full of bright stars. Hannah spoke up. "Papa, please tell us a story about Mama." The question surprised Caleb. He looked to Clara, who gave him a small, encouraging nod. "Tell us the happy one about when you first met." Caleb had not told that story in ages. He had not allowed himself to even think of it. But his children were looking at him with such hopeful eyes. And Clara was right. They needed a father who was truly living. "All right then," he said, pulling Hannah onto his lap as the others gathered near. "I will tell you about the first time I ever laid eyes on your mama." Ruth piped up. "It was at a dance." "I have told you that part, but I never told you what we said to each other." Lily asked, "What did she say?" A small smile touched Caleb's lips. "She said I was the worst dancer she had ever seen, and she was right. I stepped on her feet 3 times in the first minute." Sam's eyes went wide. 3 times? That is a lot." "It surely was. Your mama was wearing her best shoes, and I nearly ruined them." Caleb said, his voice growing soft. But she did not walk away. She just said, "If you plan on destroying my shoes, you had better plan on marrying me." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I believe I will." Grace asked, "Just like that?" "Just like that. Sometimes you meet a person and you just know." Hannah tilted her head. "Know what?" "That they are the one. That everything you have been searching for your whole life is standing right there in front of you." The children were quiet for a spell. Then Lily asked in a small voice, "Did you love her right away?" "Yes, baby girl. I loved her the moment I saw her, and I never stopped." "Do you still love her, even though she is in heaven?" Caleb felt his throat tighten. He took a moment before he could speak. "Yes, Lily. I still love her. I will always love her." "That is good," Lily nodded. "Because she still loves you, too. I know it." "How do you know that?" "Because she sends me dreams, happy ones. In the dreams, she tells me to take care of you." Lily looked up at him. "So I try, Papa. I try real hard." Caleb could not find his voice. He could barely breathe. His 4-year-old daughter, who could not even remember her mother's face, was trying to take care of him. He pulled her close and held her tight. "You do good, baby," he finally managed. "You do real good." The room was silent except for the fire crackling. Clara's voice was soft. "Your wife sounds like an extraordinary woman." "She was," Caleb said, his eyes still downcast. "The best person I ever knew. She raised good children. We both did our best." "It seems like you succeeded," Clara said as she stood and moved toward the kitchen. "It is late. The children need to sleep." The children grumbled but did as they were told, settling into their bedding by the fire. Soon, all of them were fast asleep. Caleb sat watching them until Clara returned with 2 cups of hot coffee. She handed one to him. "You are good with them," she said quietly. "Better than you think you are." "I do not feel good at anything anymore," he confessed. "Grief makes you doubt every single thing." They sat together in a comfortable silence, listening to the fire. "Can I ask you something?" Caleb finally said. "You can always ask. Does not mean I will answer." "Why did you and William never have children?" Her expression changed, and for a second he thought she would not reply. "We tried," she said at last, her voice low. "For many years we tried. I lost 3 before they had a chance to be born. After the 3rd one, the doctor told me I should not try again. I am sorry." William was devastated. He wanted children more than anything. I think a part of him never truly forgave me for it. Her voice sounded far away. After he was gone, I would wonder if things might have been different with a child. Someone to keep me tied to him. Caleb gazed at his own sleeping children, the 5 souls who gave him a reason to go on after Emma died. "They are the only reason I am still here," he admitted. "After Emma, I did not want to live, but I looked at them, and I knew it was not my choice to make." "That is no small thing, Caleb. Choosing to stay for them. It did not feel like a choice. It felt like a duty." "Sometimes a duty becomes a purpose. Sometimes the things we must do become the things we want to do," Clara said, her eyes meeting his. "You do not just survive for them anymore. You love them. You want to see them happy. That is much more than a duty." "But is it enough?" he asked. "Can I give them everything they need when I am still so broken?" Clara was silent for a long moment. "Nobody is unbroken," she said finally. "We all carry damage we do not speak of. The question is not if you are broken. It is if you are willing to keep trying, despite the cracks. And if trying is not enough, you let someone help." She stood, setting her cup down. You do not have to do this all alone, Caleb. That is not strength. That is just plain stubbornness. That sounds like something Emma would have said. A small, warm smile appeared on Clara's face. Maybe she was smarter than you thought. Get some sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day. She walked to her room but paused at the door. Caleb, I'm glad you found my cabin. I am glad I could help. Then she was gone. Caleb sat alone by the dying fire, watching his children sleep. The storm had passed. Tomorrow he would have to face the ruined wagon and make hard decisions. But tonight, in this small, quiet cabin with his children and a woman who understood his sorrow, Caleb Thornton felt a flicker of something he had not felt in 2 years. It was not happiness, not yet. It was hope. He lay down near his children, closed his eyes, and for the second night in a row, he slept without nightmares. The wagon was much worse than Caleb remembered. He stood in the deep snow and stared at the wreckage. The front axle was snapped clean in half. One wheel was gone completely, buried under 3 feet of snow. The canvas cover was torn and gone, leaving their supplies open to the storm. Most everything was ruined. Sam stood silently beside him. The boy had insisted on coming along. "Can we fix it?" Sam asked. Caleb took a long walk around the wagon, seeing the full extent of the damage. He kicked the broken axle. The flour was a frozen lump. The salted pork was scattered. The blankets were stiff as boards. Emma's trunk, the one he promised he would never open, lay on its side in a snowbank. "No, son," he said, his voice flat. "We cannot fix it." Sam's face fell. "What will we do?" It was a good question, one Caleb had been asking himself all morning. The plan to start a new life was in pieces, just like their wagon. They had no wagon, few supplies, and 5 children depending on him. "We will salvage what we can," Caleb said. "We will bring it back to Miss Clara's cabin, and then we will figure out our next move." They worked in the cold silence, digging for anything useful. Sam found a bag of beans that was still good. Caleb found some tools and rope. Emma's trunk was frozen shut but seemed intact. He did not try to open it. He could not face what was inside. "Papa, look!" Sam was holding up a small wooden frame. It was a photograph of Emma, miraculously unbroken. Her face looked back at him from behind the glass. He had forgotten packing it, shoving it in at the last minute because he could not bear to leave it, but could not bear to look at it. There she was, with her dark hair and her warm smile. "Can we keep it?" Sam's voice was small. "I do not want to forget what she looked like." Caleb took the photograph from his son model. His hands were shaking, and it was not from the cold. "Yeah," he said, "we will keep it." They loaded what little they could save onto the horses and started back. The walk back to the cabin felt 100 miles long, weighed down by more than just supplies. Clara was waiting for them at the door. "That bad?" she asked, just by looking at Caleb's face. "Worse. The wagon is finished. Most of our supplies are gone." She did not offer any useless words of comfort. She just nodded and moved aside so they could come inside. "The children are out back. I put them to work in the root cellar sorting vegetables." She took the heavy bag from Sam. "I figured they needed something to do besides sit and worry." "Thank you. Do not thank me just yet. We need to have a talk about what happens now." That talk came later that night, long after the children were asleep. Caleb sat at Clara's little table with the photograph of Emma lying face down in front of him. He could not bring himself to look at it, but he could not put it away either. Clara sat on the other side, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. "Options," she said plainly. "Let us talk about what our options are. There are not many. There are always options. Some choices are just harder than others." Caleb scrubbed a hand over his tired face. He was bone-weary of making decisions, of being the one his family looked to for every answer. "We could try to wait for spring," he said, his voice low. "Just stay put till the snow thaws. Then head for my brother Peter's ranch. He knew it was a long shot. That was 3, maybe 4 months away. And he knew Clara's next question before she asked it. Did he have the money for that much food and supplies? Caleb felt the weight of the few coins stitched into his coat lining. It was emergency money, enough for a month if they stretched every penny. It was not enough. Clara then asked about his brother, if he could send help. Maybe if I could get word to him, Caleb admitted, shaking his head. The nearest town is a full day's ride, and there is no guarantee of a telegraph. Even then, it would take weeks for anyone to reach us. Clara was quiet for a long moment. There is another way, she said softly. One you are not going to like. He looked at her. Stay here, not just for the winter, for good. This old cabin is solid, she continued before he could object. The land is good and the hunting is steady. I have been managing on my own for 6 years. With your help, we could build something real here, something big enough for a family. I cannot ask that of you, Caleb said immediately. You are not asking, she replied. I am offering. He had to ask. Why? The word came out sharp, but Clara did not even blink. Because I am tired of being alone, she said, her voice steady. Because your children need a safe place to land instead of another hard journey. And because maybe we both need something we cannot find by ourselves. You do not even know us, he protested. I know enough, she insisted. I know you're a good man, bent but not broken by loss. I know your children are kind and brave and deserve better. And I know this cabin has felt more like a home in the last 3 days than it has in 6 years. I am not suggesting anything improper, Caleb. I am proposing a partnership. You and your children stay. We build a life here. We share the work, the food, and the burden of surviving. And what do you get out of it? He had to know. A family, she said, the word raw and honest. I never had children of my own. I thought I had made my peace with that. But seeing your children, I want to be part of something again. Caleb was speechless. The offer was too generous. It felt like a handout, and he was never one to take charity. But then he saw his children's faces in his mind. He saw Ruth finally sleeping soundly, Lily laughing, and 14-year-old Grace finally looking like a child instead of carrying the weight of the world. What was best for them? That was all that mattered. I need to think, he said at last. Take all the time you need, Clara said, standing up to leave him be. But Caleb, do not let your pride make this choice. Pride will not keep your children fed through the winter. He sat alone, staring at the old photograph of his wife still face down on the table. He could not bring himself to look at it. Emma would have known what to do. But Emma was gone. He sat up all night, wrestling with the choice. By the time the cold morning light filtered in, he was by the fire, holding the photograph face up. Her smile, the same one that had captured his heart 20 years ago, looked back at him. Is that Mama? Lily's small voice made him jump. She had slipped beside him, wrapped in a blanket. Yes, baby girl. That is your Mama. Lily climbed onto his lap and stared at the picture. She is pretty. She was. Caleb's throat felt tight. In my dreams, she looks different, Lily mumbled, her brow furrowed. She looks brighter, like she is made of sunshine. He could barely speak. That sounds about right. Papa? Lily asked. Are we going to stay here with Miss Clara? He looked down at his 4-year-old daughter, who trusted him to fix the world. Would you like to stay here? She gave the question serious thought. Miss Clara is nice, she said finally. She does not get mad when I ask a lot of questions. And she knows how to make Ruthie laugh. Nobody has made Ruthie laugh in a long, long time. That was true. And, Lily added, her face scrunched in thought, I think Mama would like Miss Clara, because Miss Clara takes care of us, like Mama used to. The simple truth from his little girl hit him right in the chest. Clara was not replacing Emma. She was filling a void that had been empty for so long, it had started to feel normal. "You might be right, baby," he whispered. "I am always right," Lily grinned. "Mama told me so in a dream." As the other children woke, Clara went about her morning, never pushing him for an answer. But he saw the look in her eyes when she glanced his way. It was a mix of hope and fear. He realized she was just as scared as he was. Scared he would leave and she would be alone again. They were two broken people, trying to find a way to keep going. Maybe that was a good place to start. After breakfast, Caleb gathered the older children, Grace, Ruth, and Sam. Clara kindly took the little ones outside to give them some privacy. "I need to talk to you all about Miss Clara's offer," he began. Grace nodded. "We heard. It is hard not to in a small cabin." "Then you know she wants us to stay for good," Caleb said. "What about Uncle Peter?" Sam asked, his loyalty clear. "We were supposed to go to his ranch." "We could still go in the spring," Caleb confirmed. "But you are thinking about staying, are not you?" Ruth's voice was quiet, observant. Caleb looked at the three of them, waiting for him to decide their future. "I want to know what you think," he said. "This is about all of us." Grace spoke first. "It is safer here. That trip to Uncle Peter's nearly killed us." "But he is family," Sam argued. "He is our blood. Miss Clara is a stranger." "She saved our lives," Ruth said, her voice sharp. "She took us in when she could have just shut the door. That has to count for something." "I know, but—" Sam started to say. "You are saying you do not trust her. I am saying we do not know her, children." Caleb raised a hand. "We will keep this civil." Sam quieted down, his jaw set firm. Ruth looked at the floor. Grace, always the peacemaker, broke the silence. "Papa, what do you want? Not what is smart or what is practical. What do you truly want in your heart?" The question surprised him. What he wanted was Emma back. He wanted to turn back the clock 2 years and get sick instead of her. But that was not possible. Right here, right now. What did he want? He thought of Clara, her steady hands and sharp mind. He thought of this cabin, finally warm and full of life. He pictured his children, happier than they had been in a long, long time. "I want them to be safe," he said. "I want them to be happy. I want them to grow up feeling loved and knowing they have a home." "Can Miss Clara give us that?" Grace asked. He paused. I think maybe she can. Maybe we can all give it to each other." Ruth was watching him with wise eyes. "You like her, do you not, Papa?" His face grew warm. This is not about—" "It is okay if you do," Ruth said softly. "Mama would want you to be happy. She would not want you to be alone." Her words hit him hard because they were true. He had told himself the same thing but could not believe it until his 11-year-old daughter said it. "Your mama," his voice cracked. "Your mama meant the world to me. I loved her more than I thought a man could love someone. We know, Papa. I'm not trying to replace her. Nobody could ever replace her. We know that too," Grace said, taking his hand. "But maybe this is just something new, not better or worse than what you had with Mama, just different." "When did you get so wise?" Caleb asked with a small smile. "I had a good teacher." Grace squeezed his hand. "2 of them, actually." The fire crackled in the quiet room. Outside, they could hear the girls laughing with Clara. "So, what do we do?" Sam finally asked, his anger gone. "Do we stay?" Caleb looked at each of them. Grace, who had been a mother for too long. Ruth, who was just starting to heal. Sam, who needed a place to belong. "I think," he said slowly, "we should give it a try. We will stay through the winter and see how things go. If it works, we stay longer. If it does not, we will make a new plan in the spring." "And Miss Clara?" Ruth asked. "What will you tell her?" "The truth, that we are grateful, that we want to try, that we are not making any promises we cannot keep, but we are willing to see where this leads." Grace nodded. "That sounds fair. Sam?" The boy hesitated. "I miss Uncle Peter. I was excited to see him and the cousins. I know, but I like it. Here, too. The girls are happy, and if Miss Clara is willing to have us, he shrugged, trying to sound casual. I suppose we could try. Ruth? She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was a whisper. Miss Clara makes me feel like it is okay to be sad. She makes me feel like I do not have to pretend everything is fine. She looked straight at Caleb. I have not felt that way since Mama passed. I do not want to lose that feeling. Caleb pulled her into a tight hug. You will not, he promised. No matter what happens, you will not have to pretend anymore. They found Clara in the stable, showing Hannah and Lily how to brush the horses. The little girls were chattering away, completely focused on their task. Clara looked up as they came near. Her face was calm, but Caleb saw the worry in her eyes. Clara, can we speak for a moment? She handed the brush to Hannah. Keep going just like that. I will be right back. They walked in short ways from the children, just far enough for some privacy. Clara faced him with her arms crossed, protecting herself. You have made a decision. We have. I spoke with the older children. I wanted to know what they thought. A hint of surprise showed in Clara's eyes. Caleb took a deep breath. This was it. This would change everything. We would like to stay, he said. If your offer is still good. Clara's breath hitched. For a second, she was perfectly still. Then the tension flowed out of her. It stands, she said, her voice a little shaky. It definitely stands. We are not making promises we cannot keep, Caleb added. It is a trial, through the winter at least, to see if we can make this work. That is fair. And this is not charity. We will work hard and pull our own weight. I never thought otherwise. And if it does not work out, we will leave in the spring. No hard feelings. Agreed. Clara held out her hand. Partners? Caleb took it. Her hand was firm and warm. Partners. They stood like that for a moment, neither wanting to let go. Then Hannah's voice broke the spell. Papa. Lily touched the horse's nose, and it sneezed all over her. It did not. It did too. You have horse snot on your face. It is not snot, it is a horse blessing. Clara laughed, a bright sound that Caleb realized he had missed hearing. I should probably go settle that, she said. That would be wise. But they still did not move. Thank you, Caleb said quietly, for giving us a chance. Thank you for staying. Clara's eyes were shining. I had forgotten what it felt like to not be alone. She pulled her hand away and walked toward the children, calling out about horse sneezes and washing faces. Caleb watched her go. Something deep inside him had changed. He could feel it in his chest, where the sadness had lived for so long. The grief was still there, and it probably always would be. But now, there was something else alongside it. Something that felt an awful lot like hope. He walked back to the cabin. His 3 oldest children were waiting on the porch. Well, Grace asked. We are staying. A huge grin spread across Sam's face. Ruth's eyes welled up with happy tears. Grace just nodded, as if she knew it all along. Good, she said. Now let us go help with those horses before Lily gets blessed again. They walked toward the stable together, and Caleb thought that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be all right. The days fell into a steady rhythm of work and learning. Caleb began planning to expand the cabin for 7 people. He drew up plans and started clearing trees. Sam worked right beside him every day. The boy was too young for the heavy lifting, but he was eager and learned fast. You are a natural at this, Caleb told him one afternoon. You have a steady hand. Sam beamed with pride. Really? Really. Your mama would be so proud. The words came out before Caleb could stop them. He braced himself for the usual wave of sadness, but this time it was softer. Thanks, Papa, Sam said, looking down with a smile. I want to help make this place good for us. You are, son. You already are. Inside the cabin, Clara was teaching the girls. Ruth loved learning about herbs, memorizing plants with a surprising focus. Grace learned practical skills like baking bread and canning food, things she had been too young to learn before Emma passed away. Hannah and Lily mostly played, but Clara wove lessons into their games like counting with beans or drawing letters in cornmeal. "She is a good teacher," Grace admitted one evening. "She is patient and explains things well." "You sound surprised." "I guess I did not know what to expect," Grace said. "It is just different than I imagined." "Good different or bad different?" Grace thought for a moment. "Good. I think it is mostly good." That was the best Caleb could ask for. But the new life was not easy for everyone. Ruth's nightmares started during the third week. Caleb woke up to a scream. For a terrifying second, he was back in the snowstorm, losing his children in the white. Then he realized the sound was Ruth. He was out of bed in an instant, but Clara was already there. She was kneeling by Ruth's side, speaking in a low, calm voice. "It is okay. You are safe. You are warm in the cabin. Can you hear my voice?" Ruth was sitting up, her eyes. A strangled cry from Ruth cut him off. Her eyes were wide with terror, lost in a nightmare. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Mama, where are you?" Caleb's heart shattered. "Ruth, sweetheart, it is Papa. I am right here." Her eyes finally focused on him, and the terror was replaced by shame. "I am sorry," she cried. "I did not mean to wake you." "Never apologize for a bad dream," Clara said softly, her hand rubbing slow circles on Ruth's back. Ruth's tears started to fall. "I keep dreaming about that morning," she sobbed. "I find her in her room and she is so still. I know she is gone, but I cannot move. I just stand there screaming and nobody comes." Caleb pulled her into a tight hug. "I should have saved her," Ruth choked out. "Why did I not do something, say?" "Honey, there was nothing you could have done," Caleb said, his own voice thick with emotion. "Your mama died peacefully in her sleep. Not you, not me, not any doctor could have changed that." "Then why does it feel like my fault?" The question hung heavy in the small cabin. Clara spoke into the silence. "Grief tells us lies," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "It makes us think we had the power to change things. But death does not work that way. It takes people when it is their time." "How do you know?" Ruth asked, looking up at her. "Because I blamed myself too," Clara confessed, taking Ruth's hand. "My husband, William, was sick. I was a nurse. I should have seen the signs sooner. I spent years believing I had failed him." "Honey, there was nothing to do. She was gone long before you found her." "But what if she wasn't?" "Ruth, look at me." Caleb held her gaze. "Your mama passed in her sleep, peaceful as can be. There was nothing anyone could have done. Then why does it feel like it is all my fault?" The question just hung there in the cold air. Clara spoke into the quiet. "Grief is a liar sometimes. It whispers that we could have changed things, that if we were just a little bit smarter or quicker, we could have stopped the worst from happening. But that is not how it works. Death comes when it is time." "How would you know?" Ruth asked, her voice small. "Because I blamed myself too. When my William died, I was a nurse. I spent years thinking his death was on my hands. What made it change? I finally realized that even if I'd done everything right, it might not have made a difference. Some things are just bigger than us. And hurting ourselves for not stopping the unstoppable, that does not honor the ones we lost. It just keeps us stuck in the pain." Ruth was quiet for a long while. "Do you still feel guilty?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "The voice gets quieter over the years, but it never disappears completely. The trick is learning not to listen. You just need practice, time, and good people to remind you of the truth." Ruth looked at Caleb and then at Clara. "I do not want to feel like this anymore," she whispered. "I am just so tired." "I know, sweetheart." Caleb pulled her in close. We are going to get through this, all of us together." They talked until the sun threatened to rise, sharing stories about Emma. Ruth finally fell asleep, looking more peaceful than she had in 2 years. From across the cabin, Clara caught Caleb's eye. He mouthed the words, "Thank you." She simply nodded. The nightmares did not stop overnight, but they came less often. And when they did, Ruth was not alone. By the 4th week, the new room for the cabin was finally taking shape. Caleb and Sam worked from dawn till dusk. 2 more weeks, he figured, maybe 3. Then we will get the girls a proper room. "And after that?" Sam asked. "After that, we build a barn. A real one. Get some chickens, maybe even a cow." "A cow?" Sam's eyes went wide. "For real? A man cannot feed his family just by hunting. We need something steady. We will ride to the nearest town come spring. Can I come?" "We will see," Caleb said, which was his way of saying yes. Sam grinned, already chattering about the cow and the barn. Caleb listened with one ear, the other tuned to the cabin. Light flickered in the window, and he could hear Clara teaching the girls something. Then he heard it, a sound that had been missing for 2 long years. Laughter. Real, honest-to-goodness laughter. "Papa." Sam was looking at him funny. "Are you all right?" "I am fine. You were just staring at the cabin. I was just thinking." "About Miss Clara." The boy shrugged, trying to act casual. "You just look at her sometimes, the way you used to look at Mama." Caleb felt a heat rise in his neck. "I do not know what you are talking about." "It is all right if you do," Sam said, his voice quiet. "I think she looks at you that way too." The boy picked up his axe. "Mama would want you to be happy, Papa. We all would." He walked off, leaving Caleb standing alone in the fading light. Was it that obvious? He had to admit Clara made him feel a flicker of hope he thought was long dead, but it felt too soon. Emma had only been gone 2 years. Was there not some rule book for grieving? He did not know. All he knew was that Clara's laugh eased a tightness in his chest. And when she looked his way for a second, he forgot his heart was supposed to be broken. Later that night, Clara found him sitting on the porch. "It is freezing out here," she said, sitting down beside him. "Just needed some air. I saw your face when you came in from your talk with Sam. It is none of my business, but you looked troubled." He took a long breath. "He said I look at you the way I used to look at Emma." The night went still. "And do you?" she asked softly. Caleb finally turned to her. The moonlight softened the weary lines on her face. "I honestly do not know," he said. "Everything feels tangled up with guilt and grief. I'm afraid I'm doing something wrong by even thinking about—" He trailed off. Clara was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something? I have been alone for 6 years. 6 years of waking up in an empty cabin and going to bed knowing nobody would even notice if I did not wake up. I told myself I was fine, that I chose to be alone. But I was not healing. I was hiding. I probably would have stayed that way if your children had not stumbled into my life." She looked right at him. "I care about them, Caleb. And I care about you too. I do not know what it is or what it means, but it is there. I am not asking for anything," she said, taking a breath. "I just needed you to know that whatever it is you are feeling, you are not the only one." The words settled between them, full of unspoken possibility. Caleb thought of the promise he made at Emma's grave. But then he thought of his children, of the life they were building together, piece by piece. He thought about what Emma, the real Emma, would have wanted. She would not want him to be alone. She would not want him to let fear stop him from living. "I am scared," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Me too. I do not know how to do this, how to move on from here." "Neither do I," she said. "But maybe we can figure it out together." "You do not have to know." Clara's hand covered his. "We can just take it one day at a time. And if this goes nowhere, Well, at least we gave it a shot. At least we will not wonder what could have been. Her hand felt warm and strong in his. One day at a time, he echoed her words. They sat in the quiet cold, their hands clasped together, watching their breath turn to smoke in the moonlight. Nothing more needed to be said. The next morning, Lily came down with a cough. At first, they figured it was nothing. Kids get coughs, especially in the winter. But by nightfall, a fever was burning her up. Caleb felt that old, familiar panic rise in his throat. A fever had taken his Emma. It had stolen his wife right before his eyes. "It is not the same," Clara said, seeing the fear on his face. "This is different. How can you be so sure?" "Because I have seen this before. It is a bad chest cold is all. She just needs rest, plenty of water, and to be kept warm. She will pull through." "You cannot promise that." "No," Clara's voice was firm but kind. "But I can promise you I will do every single thing in my power to see that she does." All through the night, she worked. She used cool cloths for the fever and brewed a special tea for the cough. She whispered comforting words to a scared 4-year-old girl. Caleb never left Lily's side. He held her tiny hand and told her stories about her mama, about sunny days and guardian angels. "Papa?" Lily's voice was just a weak little rasp. "Yes, baby girl. Am I going to die like Mama did?" The question hit him like a punch to the gut. "No, sweet girl, no, you are not going to die. Miss Clara is right here taking care of you. You are going to be just fine. Promise." He looked over at Clara, who gave a slow, steady nod. "Promise." Lily's eyelids fluttered shut, and her little hand went limp in his. Caleb just sat there, counting every single breath she took. "You need to get some sleep," Clara whispered. "I cannot," Caleb said. "I watched Emma die from a fever. For 3 days I sat by her bed and I just watched her fade away, and I could not do a thing." His voice broke. "I cannot go through that again." Clara knelt down, her hand resting on his shoulder. "This is different, Caleb. Emma had typhoid. We did not know until it was too late. Lily just has a bad cold. It is frightening, I know, but it is not a death sentence. Not if we are careful." "How can you be so sure?" he pleaded. "Because I am a nurse. I have seen this hundreds of times. I know what a real danger looks like." She gently turned his face to hers, making him meet her eyes. "You have to trust me, Caleb. Please." He wanted to, Lord knows he did, but the fear was a heavy blanket. "I cannot lose anyone else," he whispered. "You will not," she promised. "I will not let you." It was not a guarantee, but it was enough. Caleb finally let out a long, shaky breath. "All right," he said. "All right." The fever broke 2 days later. Lily woke, up fussy and hungry, demanding to know why she could not go play. The other children cried with relief. Caleb had to step outside, walking into the woods so they would not see him break down. Clara found him leaning against an old oak, his shoulders shaking. She stood beside him in silence until the tears stopped. "I am sorry," he finally managed to say. "Do not be. I should be stronger." "You are strong." "That is the issue," Clara said softly. "You are so strong that you hold everything inside. You push it all down until something small makes it all come pouring out." "How do I make it stop?" "You do not," she said. "You just learn to let it out a little at a time. You let people help you carry the weight. I'm not good at that." "I know. I am not either." She moved a little closer. "But maybe that is something we could learn together." Caleb looked at her then. This woman who had saved his little girl, who had opened her home to them, who understood a loneliness that ran as deep as his own. Nobody else could. "Clara, do not—" She raised a hand to stop him. "Do not say a word you are not ready to say. We have time, all the time in the world." She started to walk away. "Clara." She paused and looked back. Thank you for saving her, for saving all of us. She gave him a small, genuine smile. You all saved yourselves. I just held the door open. She headed back to the cabin, and Caleb watched her for a moment. Then he followed her. Because when someone shows you the way out of a dark place, you follow them toward the light. Winter finally started to let go. One morning, Caleb woke to the sound of dripping water from the melting snow on the roof. Spring was on its way. 3 months had passed since the blizzard. 3 months of building and learning and turning into something that felt an awful lot like a family. The new addition to the cabin was done. Caleb and Sam had built it themselves, board by board. Standing there looking at it filled him with a pride he had not felt in a long, long time. Not too shabby, Clara said, coming up next to him, especially for a rancher who said he could not build much. I had some good motivation, he said. She gave him that smile, the one that made his chest feel tight in a good way. The girls are already in there arguing over which bed they get. Let me guess. Hannah wants the one by the window, and Lily wants whichever one Hannah has. That sounds about right. They stood there a moment, watching their breath mist in the cool air. Caleb, Clara's voice turned serious. We need to talk. His heart sank. What is it? Nothing is wrong. But we have to make some choices about what comes next. What sort of choices? Clara turned to him. Her eyes were direct, but he could see she was nervous. We have been living under the same roof for 3 months now. We have been raising your children together, building a life. She took a breath. When spring comes and folks start visiting, people are going to start talking. They're going to have questions. Caleb knew she was right. Out here in the wild, staying alive came first. But with the world opening back up, folks would expect things to be proper. What are you getting at? I am not getting at anything. I am asking you what you want. The question just hung there in the air. He thought about the last 3 months. He saw how Ruth was finally sleeping through the night, how Sam walked taller, and how Grace was acting like a kid again. He saw all his children thriving, really living under Clara's watch. And then he thought of Clara herself, her strength, her kindness, and the way she sometimes looked at him when she thought he was not paying attention. He even thought about Emma, not with that crushing sadness, but with a gentle warmth for the years they had. She would always be a part of him. But Emma was gone. He was still here, and standing right in front of him was the woman who made him feel like the future was possible again. I want to stay, Caleb said, his voice slow and sure. I want to keep building this life we have started, and I want you to be a real part of it. Clara's breath hitched. What are you trying to say? I am saying I have never been much with words. Emma used to tease me about it. His voice got a little rough. But I know what I feel. And these past 3 months, this is the first time since she passed that I have felt like I was actually living, not just getting by. He took her hands in his. I am saying I want to marry you, Clara, if you will have me. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. Well, that is not a very proper proposal, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You are supposed to get down on one knee. My knees are not what they used to be, just making excuses. But she was laughing now, right through the tears. And Caleb found himself laughing too. It felt more real than any fancy proposal ever could. So, is that a yes? He asked. It is a yes. Clara squeezed his hands tight. It has been a yes since that night you told me about Emma. I knew then you were the kind of man who could love someone with his whole heart and still have room for more. He pulled her into a hug, holding her the way he had wanted to for weeks. She fit against him just right. Different from Emma, but perfect. The children, Clara mumbled into his chest. We should tell them, together. They found the kids in the new room still in a squabble over the beds. But I called it first, Hannah insisted. You cannot just call things, Grace shot back. That is not how it works. Lily chimed in. I do not want that bed anymore anyway. I want to sleep with Papa. Sam rolled his eyes. You cannot sleep with Papa forever. Children! Caleb's voice cut through the noise. They all turned to look at him. Miss Claire and I need to talk to y'all about something important. The room went quiet in an instant. 5 pairs of eyes were suddenly filled with worry. Is something wrong? Ruth asked, her voice small. No, sweetheart, nothing's wrong, Caleb assured her, then glanced at Clara. She gave him a slight nod. We've been talking, Clara said simply. And your papa asked me to marry him. And I said yes. After a moment of silence, Hannah's face broke into a wide grin. Does that mean you're going to be our new mama? Clara knelt down to their level. It means I'm going to be your stepmother. Your mama will always be your mama. No one can ever replace her, but I'd be honored to officially be part of this family. I'd like that, Lily said seriously. You make good cornbread. Clara chuckled. Well, I am glad my cornbread passes the test. What about the rest of you? Caleb asked, looking at his older children. This is a decision for all of us. Grace was the first to speak. I think Mama would want this. She would want you to be happy, and she'd want us to have someone looking after us. You already do, Ruth added. This just makes it official. Sam was the last one, and he was quiet. Caleb waited patiently. Sam. The boy looked up, his face a mix of feelings. I miss Mama, he said, his voice low. I'm always going to miss her. I know you will, son. But I like Miss Clara, Sam continued, and I like how things have been. I reckon Mama would tell us to be brave, to not let being sad stop us from being happy. That's exactly what she'd say, Caleb agreed, his voice thick with emotion. Sam managed a small smile. Then I am okay with it, long as I still get to help build that new barn. Deal, Caleb promised. Hannah launched herself at Clara, wrapping her arms tight around her neck. I'm so happy we're going to be a real family now. We already are, sweetheart, Clara said, hugging her back. We already are. The wedding took place on the first real day of spring. The snow was finally gone, and tiny wildflowers were pushing up through the damp earth. The whole world felt brand new. They didn't have a preacher, but Clara said it didn't matter. We'll say our vows to each other, to the children, and to God. That's what counts. So they all gathered in front of the little cabin they had built together. Caleb wore his best clothes, all brushed clean. Clara was in a simple dress she had made with wildflowers in her hair the girls had picked for her that morning. The children stood in a neat row, looking proud. Grace held onto a photograph of their mama, Emma. They all agreed she needed to be there with them. I don't have fancy words, Caleb began, his voice rough. Never been good at speeches, but I know what's in my heart. He took Clara's hands. 2 years ago, I thought my life was done. I'd lost the woman I loved, and I was just walking through my days trying to keep my children fed and not drown in sorrow. I never thought I'd feel whole again. His eyes locked with hers. Then a blizzard came, we found your cabin, and you opened your door. You saved us that night, and you've kept on saving us every single day since, from being lonely, and from the fear we would never be a family again. His voice cracked, but he pushed on. I loved Emma with everything I had, and I always will. But she taught me that a heart doesn't run out of space. It just gets bigger. He squeezed Clara's hands. I love you, Clara. I love your strength, your kindness, and the way you look at my children. I love that you understand grief because you have lived it. You are not trying to replace Emma, but to build something new beside her memory. I promise to stand by you always. Clara's eyes were filled with tears, but her voice was strong. When my William died, I thought I was broken for good. I ran away from the world because it felt too big and empty without him. She looked at the children, then back at Caleb. Then 5 frozen children and their daddy stumbled onto my doorstep, and everything changed. Y'all needed me. Your children gave me a purpose I thought I had lost forever. Her hands tightened on his. I love you, Caleb. I love your steady heart and the way you would walk through fire for your family. I love that you trust me with your children and with your memories of Emma. I could never be her. But I promise to honor her memory while we build our own future. I will love your children as my own and stand with you through every storm and every sunny day. A quiet moment passed, with just the sound of the wind in the trees. Can we clap now? Lily asked loudly, breaking the silence. Everyone laughed, the tension finally gone. Yes, baby girl, Caleb said. You can clap now. The children all cheered. Lily and Hannah rushed in for a hug. Sam shook Caleb's hand like a grown man before giving in to a hug too. Grace watched, holding the photograph to her chest. Mama would be happy, she whispered. I know she would. I know it too, Caleb said softly. That night, after the kids were asleep, Caleb and Clara sat on the porch under a sky full of stars. Married, Clara said, trying out the word. I had given up on ever saying that again. Me too, Caleb replied, taking her hand. Me too. You scared? Terrified, she answered with a soft laugh. Good, me too. At least we're in it together. Caleb wrapped his arm around her and she leaned right into his side. Thank you, he said. For what? For everything. For opening your door. For saving my children. For giving me a reason to keep going when I'd forgotten how. Clara was quiet for a spell. You saved me too, Caleb. I just didn't know I needed saving until you showed up. They sat there watching the stars spin across that big sky. Caleb, she said softly, I'm happy. The real kind of happy. I forgot what it felt like. He pulled her closer. Me too. The months that followed were tough as nails. Building a homestead from the ground up was back-breaking work. They lost their first plants to a late frost, and a wolf got into the chickens. Sam even broke his arm and was cranky for 6 weeks, but there was real joy, too. Ruth's nightmares finally went away for good, and Grace started filling a journal with stories and drawings. She wanted to hold on to the memories of Emma. Hannah and Lily became thick as thieves, getting into mischief and covering for each other like pros. And Caleb started laughing again, a real deep-down belly laugh that left him breathless. Clara did that for him. She made him feel things he figured were buried with Emma. She made him believe the future was something to look forward to, not just survive. For their first anniversary, the kids gave them a gift. It was a rough wooden carving of 7 figures standing together. Caleb, Clara, Grace, Ruth, Sam, Hannah, and Lily. A family. Liam taught me to carve, Sam announced with pride. But we all worked on it. I painted the faces, Lily chirped. See, Clara's got brown eyes. And I sanded it smooth so no one gets splinters, Hannah added. It's beautiful, Clara whispered, her eyes welling up. She cried a lot these days, but they were the happy kind of tears. We wanted you all to have something, Grace said. Something that shows what we are now all together. Caleb looked at the carving, at his children's hopeful faces, and then at Clara, the woman who'd given them all a second chance. It's perfect, he said, his voice gone rough. It's absolutely perfect. That night he placed it on the mantel right next to Emma's photograph. His first wife and his new wife, his past and his present together in the home they'd all built. It felt right. 2 years down the road, on a clear spring morning, Clara gave birth to a daughter they named Hope. The older kids gathered round, passing their new sister from one to another. Lily, who was 6 now, was just amazed. She's so little, she said. Was I ever this little? Smaller, Caleb told her. You were the tiniest baby I'd ever laid eyes on. Clara watched them from the bed, tired but absolutely glowing. This was a life she never thought she'd have. A child of her own, a family wrapped around her with so much love. "Thank you," she told Caleb after the kids had gone. "For what?" "For giving me all this. The children, this home, a life I'd given up on." He sat by the bed looking at the baby in her arms. "You gave me just as much, Clara. Maybe more." "We gave it to each other," she corrected him. "That's how this works." Baby Hope opened her eyes. They were brown, just like her mama's. But Caleb saw a little spark in them, a hint of mischief that was pure Emma. "She's going to be trouble," Clara said with a smile. "Probably. All the best ones are." Clara laughed that laugh he loved, the one that had become the soundtrack to his new life. His family was complete. He wasn't replacing what he'd lost, but building something new right alongside it. Emma would always be with them in memories, but Clara was his present and his future. And Hope was the living proof that even after the darkest storms, new life can find a way to bloom. That blizzard had tried its best to kill them, but all it did was lead them home. Some storms tear things down, but others come along to clear a path. Caleb Thornton had walked through hell itself, thinking he was watching his children die. He was broken and lost, ready to quit on everything. Then a woman opened her door, and it all changed. Standing in his own home with his children all around, holding his new daughter with Clara's hand in his, Caleb finally understood. When Emma told him to take care of their family, she hadn't just meant survive. She'd meant for him to live, and he was finally living. For the first time since she'd passed, Caleb knew deep in his bones that Emma was proud of him, that somewhere up there she was smiling. The storm that nearly took everything from them had, in the end, saved them all. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.